بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. ربي زدني علما. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. My dear brothers, sisters, elders and friends, I welcome you all to our lesson number 9 online Tajweed course. Last week we looked into the other vowels and we covered the first point, which was tanween, fathatain, kasratain and dhammatain, and we looked into detail and we did some practice as well. Hope inshallah you have done practice similar alphabets again and again to get the good grip of it, inshallah. So today we're going to look into Sukoon, which is the second point in other vowels. So what is Sukoon? Sukoon is also sometimes called as Jazam. The purpose of Sukoon is to connect to the letter before it. We'll see some examples inshallah. Sukoon means to rest, which means there will be no harakat, meaning the movement, i.e. fatha, kasra or dhamma. So it will be at rest. What would be at rest? A letter. A letter. Any letter which has sukoon makes a letter sakin. So if a letter ba has a sukoon on top, it will make the letter ba sakin, and we can call that letter with the sukoon on top ba sakin. Okay, and sukoon can be written in two ways with the following symbols above the letter. So we have like a backward C shape on the right hand side and like an O shape on the left hand side. Also, if there is no symbol on the letter, then it's considered to have sukoon by default, i.e. no harakat. So if there's no harakat, if there's no fatha, kasra or dhamma, or any vowel, fathatain, kasratain, dhammatain, any vowel, then which means it's blank. So that refers to that it has a sukoon because it's at rest. It's got no movement at all. Now let's have a look at the examples of sukoon. So as I mentioned, there are three ways we can write them. Two with the sign on top, and third one was without any sign, without any vowel, without any harakat on that letter. So starting from my right, going towards left, if we look at the word on the most right hand side, we got meme with a fatha on, and then we have the letter noon with a sukoon on top. Now when we will read this, we have to use a different methodology to connect it. This is the one word which we going to read together. So we will read this as meme being the first letter, then the noon the second letter, then going back to the first letters vowel, and then the second letter vowel. So I'll read it with you. Meme, noon, fatha, sukoon, man. So as you have noticed that we're not saying mana, we're not saying mani, we're not saying manu, or any other vowels not being used there. So when we are saying man, as you can tell, the noon is at rest. There is no movement, there is no harakat on the letter noon itself. So this will be a sukoon, and the noon is called a sakin. So noon is sakin at this stage. Now next word you can see in the middle is exactly the same, but the difference is the meme has a kasra and the noon has a different shape of sukoon. It's also called as Jazam, as I mentioned before. So we will read that as Mim, Noon, Kasra, Sukoon, Min. Then we have on the left hand side the letter Alif with a Fatha on, and the letter Noon with no sign at all on top. So now the letter Noon is referring to, by default, that there is no harakat on there. There's no Fatha, Kasra, Dhamma, nothing. So this means it is Sakin, Noon, Sakin. So we will read that as Alif, Noon, Fatha, Sukoon, An. So by default, as I said, it will be a Sakin there if there's no harakat there. Okay, now these we need to practice. The more we practice, the better we will get. So again, the first letter, the second letter, the first letter's vowel, and the second letter's vowel. Now let's have a look at some practice of Sukoon. So inshallah, if you can read with me, as we know these letters by now, alhamdulillah. So let's practice this together. Alif, Ta, Dhamma, Sukoon, Ut. Alif, Tha, Fatha, Sukoon, Ath. Alif, Tha, Kasra, Sukoon, Ith. Alif, Ha, Kasra, Sukoon, Ih. I can also say Hamza. Hamza, Ha, Dhamma, Sukoon. Hamza, Kha, Fatha, Sukoon, Akh. And I'll inshallah go back to Alif, just so you understand that Alif and Hamza are the same thing. So hence I put a little change there. So then we have the third row, Alif, Dhal, Fatha, Sukoon, Adh. Alif, Dhal, Kasra, Sukoon, Idh. Alif, Dhal, Dhamma, Sukoon, Udh. Alif, Zay, Dhamma, Sukoon, Uz. Alif, Sin, Fatha, Sukoon, As. Alif, Sin, Kasra, Sukoon, Is. Alif, Sad, Kasra, Sukoon, Is. Alif, Sad, Dhamma, Sukoon, Us. Alif, Dad, Fatha, Sukoon, Ab. Now while we're practicing this, we shouldn't forget that which letters are full mouth letters, which letters are thin mouth letters, which letters for example are the letter of the tongue, letter of the throat, you know, those articulation points which we have covered in previous lessons. So inshallah we're going to practice these, and so all these, as you can see, there are a few examples, and there's some example on the next slide, and I've not put from Alif to Ya completely, is because just so we can practice few examples as the origin of those letters with sukoon on doesn't change. So let's practice this with Sukoon together, inshallah. So we have, starting from the most right hand side, Alif, Lam, Kasra, Sukoon, Il. Make sure your tongue, as we know, the Lam comes from the edge of the tongue. So it goes to the right point, right makhrij, inshallah. Then we have Alif, Lam, Dhamma, Sukoon, Ul. Alif, Mim, Fatha, Sukoon, Am. Alif, Mim, Kasra, Sukoon, Im. Alif, Mim, Dhamma, Sukoon, ألف نون فتحة سكون أن ألف نون كسرة سكون إن ألف نون ضمة سكون أن ألف واو فتحة سكون أو ألف واو ضمة سكون أو ألف ها فتحة سكون ألف ها كسرة سكون ألف ها ضمة سكون ألف همزة فتحة سكون So these are like saying two alifs. Alif, Hamza, Kasra, Sukoon, Alif, Hamza, Dhamma, Sukoon, Alif, Ya, Fatha, Sukoon, Alif, Ya, Kasra, Sukoon, So these are the letters which we have, alhamdulillah, practiced together, which have sukoon on top. So as you can see, as soon as we merge the letter before with the letter which is sakin, due to having the sukoon on top, then the letter just stops there, pauses there, comes to the rest. So if it has got another shape of sukoon, like a round circle, then still we will read the same. And if it has no, like, let's take example of noon. So we have alif, noon, fatha, sukoon. So if there is no sukoon on top, we will still read as that. Alif, noon, fatha, sukoon, an. So inshallah, this is beneficial for you. Please practice and look into Quran, how we can join these letters and understand how we can pronounce them, and inshallah we can better ourselves with reciting the Quran, inshallah, gradually. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from each and every single one of you. And today we have covered from the section of the other vowels, tanween and sukoon. Inshallah, next session, next lesson, next week would be about shadda, and we will look into it that even in shadda there is a sukoon. So make sure you get a good grasp of the section sukoon which we have covered today. Jazakumullahu khairan. Barakallahu li wa lakum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.